Good evening. Welcome to the Big Fight. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the program tonight, can Modi 2.0 bring peace to the valley? Can he bring peace to Kashmir? Throughout the election campaign, the BJP spoke about their intention to abrogate Articles 370 and 35A of the Constitution, which gives Kashmir its distinct identity. It also seems clear that this government may be far less willing to rehabilitate radicalised youth than was the case when they were in alliance with the PDP in the state. The big question is this: has the BJP decisively moved beyond Vajpayee's foundation for peace in Kashmir? Insaniyat, Jamhuriyat, Kashmiriyat. On the show tonight, a fantastic panel. Amarjeet Singh Dulat, former RAW chief, somebody who's got extensive experience in Kashmir. Dr. Samir Kaul, national spokesperson of the National Conference. General Deepak Kapoor, former Chief of Army Staff. Shah Faisal, in 2009, he became the first Kashmiri to place first in the Indian Civil Services exam. He's resigned from the bureaucracy since then in protest of unabated killings in Kashmir, among other reasons. We've got the political analyst Rajat Sethi with us, and also the RSS member Desh Ratan Nigam. Before I go to them for their 1-minute introductory remarks each, what we're going to try and do on this program is split it up to just get some structure in the program. Here are 3 broad themes that we'll be looking at throughout the course of this hour. Number 1, tackling terror. Should radicalized youth be brought into the mainstream? There was an effort by Mehbooba Mufti in the past to try and get that to happen. Is that changing now, or is that all over? Number 2, will Modi 2.0 change the status of Kashmir? Article 35A and Article 370. Remember what the BJP said in their election campaign. And number 3, Modi 2.0, meaningful political engagement. Is that really a distant dream? Meaningful political engagement between the centre and the state. Opposition parties over there. Given what we've seen, it could be tough. But I'd like to go across first to Mr. Dullat. Sir, you've got 1 minute for your opening remarks. Go ahead.
Well, you know, I look at it like this, that Modi 2. Whatever you call it, 2.2, I think it offers hope, like the first time round did. Actually, Kashmir has turned full circle in the last 5 years. And I think we have a Prime Minister now who can do just about anything with the kind of majority that he has. And I think this is a much more confident Prime Minister. He doesn't have to fiddle with 370 and 35A and all that. You see, if you go back to 2015, you remember his election was welcomed in Kashmir. And among those who were in the forefront of welcoming him was the Mirwais. And he's done it again. Again, he has said that, this provides hope. And our neighbor Imran Khan has been saying the same thing through the election, that we would prefer to deal with the BJP, and there's nothing better than Mr. Modi. So okay. I think there's hope all around.
Okay. Samir, go ahead.
What you're calling the Modi Sarkar 2 is actually a team of people, and I think you're taking the credit away from my friend Desh Ratan's esteemed organization, the RSS, Amit Shah ji, and Mr. Doval. And I'm not saying good or bad. I'm saying it's a team, and it's the team relevant to Kashmir. We are standing today in Kashmir on the precipice. Now, why? Because ideologically, parties like mine, the National Conference, have spearheaded Kashmir staying within the Indian Union, and happily. Therefore, more than anyone else, we want peace, and we want it in a way that the people of Kashmir happily stay with our country, India, ever after. So therefore, this is time when things can happen, because we've always found political will, strong political will at the center. And considerate opinion next to that political will has been lacking. It might happen now. Let's see so.
Okay. I want to go across to General Deepak Kapoor. General Kapoor, you've got 1 minute for your introductory remarks. Go ahead, sir.
Vishnu, I would like to say that there has been a lot of turmoil in the state of Jammu and Kashmir since 1989, and we've gone through different cycles of insurgency, militancy, areas of peace, and stability for a while, then again turbulence. So, but elections having happened and the present government having come in with a very large majority, I think this is the right time for a peace effort to be initiated and gone through. Well, that can also happen only with not only the governance as well as the cooperation of the people in the valley, but a certain amount of stoppage of the infiltration from across, where proxy war has been the rule by the Pakistan-led dispensation to create trouble in the valley.
Okay, sir. Shah Faisal, your turn next. Your 1 minute on what you think is the road ahead. What can we expect? Are you optimistic? Are you not?
Vishnu, life sustains on hope, and the kind of mandate which Modi 2.2 has got, and also the kind of benefit of hindsight which this government has now. They have seen how in last 5 years various strategies worked and did not work in Kashmir. I think those two things collectively can help us in imagining that maybe things in Kashmir are going to change soon. But then when you talk about peace, it also matters that what kind of peace are you talking about? Are you talking about the peace of the garden or peace of the graveyard? Are you talking about peace while taking Kashmiris along, or peace in spite of Kashmiris? So it will depend. Are we going to see just counterinsurgency operations in coming days? Too much of reliance again on security forces in maybe, pushing Kashmiris to a certain level? Or are we going to see some sort of political engagement? You have various ways of achieving that peace, and the ideas of peace also differ. I think we will have to wait and see how it turns out to be, but we are very, very hopeful that things will turn for good.
All right, Deshratan Nigam, your time starts now. Go ahead.
See, I am very hopeful that Modi 2.0 will be able to tackle Kashmir problem. There will be a certain shift from Vajpayee's time. There will be an all-out war against terrorism and extremism. And also what we will see is that the new leadership coming up from the Panchayat level, because the existing leadership has proved itself to be redundant and irrelevant. And that is where, and at the same time, the focus on development will also be there. And a combination of an all-out war, as I said, against terrorism, and a scheme of incentives and disincentives for the people out there. Those who oppose India should be disincentivized, and those who are pro-India should be incentivized.
Okay. And the final comments to you, Rajat, go ahead.
I think Modi's first term, 2014 to 19, established a few fundamental aspects of his Kashmir policy. First was, as Deshmukhji has just pointed out, Deshratanji, sorry, that you need to establish a difference between peace-loving Kashmiris and the extremists and the separatists. So that is one. Second thing is that he firmly established that the problem and the trouble, so to say, lies in just 4 districts in the Kashmir Valley out of 10, and Jammu and Ladakh region are by far peaceful, and he means that the development of the state should include Jammu as well as Ladakh. This is one piece which has so far been ignored by the Congress regimes and the NC and PDP regimes. And the last thing that he tried to establish was that 2 families, the Muftis and the Abdullahs, cannot hold the entire state to ransom. So these are some of the fundamental things. And going forward in 2.0, I believe that 35A and 370, it is crystal clear in BJP's manifesto that they would stand by abrogation or complete removal of these 2 articles. They are the biggest hindrance in the emotional integration of the Kashmiris with the rest of the country.
Okay, your 1 minute is up, and I just wanted to, in fact, start on the point that you're talking about. Will Modi 2.0 change the status of Kashmir? We're looking at Article 35A, we're looking at Article 370. Samir, the Amit Shah, for one hand, we're going to play out that soundbite in a few moments, has repeatedly said that this is their core agenda as far as Kashmir is within a finite period of time, changing 370 and changing 35A. Your thoughts on that?
First of all, Amit Shah ji is quite an astute politician, and I think you cannot be an astute politician without being an astute man, a considerate and a careful human being, which I'm sure he is, and he's got very able advisors. We are well out of the election mode now.
But
if you
this
look at
isn't an election promise at
2014,
all.
we
This
are
is something
out
which
of the
they've
election
said
mode.
for a very long time.
We are
It was
now-
never an election statement per se. It did come up during the elections, but this is something that they've said time and time again.
Well, not only. I think Kashmir was the focal point.
It's in
of
their
about-
manifesto as well.
The focal point of about 100 seats won by BJP, whether it was Pulwama, Balakot, or it was the Kashmiris being, pushed against the wall and
But this is
termed
what's going to happen.
Pakistanis.
That's the point.
But
that's
that was
being made. So
election.
what is your response to
I
that?
feel that the election mode
You
is
hope
over.
that it doesn't happen, obviously,
why-
but
I
it
hope
could
to
just be
God.
staring you on the face.
I hope
I think
to
that's the
God
point.
that it doesn't happen, as much for my sake as for the sake of the countrymen in India.
All
I
right.
hope-
How would you
I hope-
respond to
because
that, Rajat?
it will
He
reverse
says for the
all
sake
that
of
may have been
countrymen,
gained.
it shouldn't happen. And his first comments earlier on, this first comment was that Kashmir is on a precipice. And in that light, he feels that no way should 370 happen.
I think all of these are vacuous statements. If you look at what Mehbooba Mufti ji said, I think during the time of the elections, was that if you remove 370, the accession of Kashmir to rest of the India in itself becomes invalidated. Now, a basic constitutional person who knows and understands constitution knows the day accession was signed, that day the state became part of this country, and no power retrospectively can, or prospectively, any laws that come in can change that status. So I don't know from where did that thing come in from, and that was stoking the fire in a
Legally,
very
he
and
says
playing
that
with
they
the
stand on
emotions of.
tenable ground. Go ahead.
Anand, I wouldn't like to go into the realm of constitutional
But why
law.
not? Because he is.
particularly, let me complete. Particularly when we are dealing with the sensitive issue of Jammu and Kashmir, because 95% of the opinions that I've seen on the media in various debates across this country are completely not factual. Because and it's a matter of respecting.
But then counter what he's saying, because he's saying that he has a point to make, and he says that look, there is legal basis to 35A and 370 going.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. Let's leave legal issues
But
to
why-
the law
it's a-
and
it's a-
the
it's a
law and let the
constitutional
law
issue, it's a
decide.
legal issue.
And
How
let
could
the
we
law
leave that
decide.
aside?
Why should we get into something because there are equal points on the other side? Actually, Shah Faisal and other people who was trying to now say, and the National Conference is really right, because Kashmir came to India on the basis of, on the shoulders of the National Conference through the thread of the instrument of accession. Now, if you, in a civilized country like India, walks away from historical agreements that it has signed,
Walking away from historical
I don't
agreements,
think it's right.
Deshrata Nigam, he says that let's not turn the page on history, let's respect it. And there was a context in which this was done.
See,
Why change that context?
We all know about the context, and 370 status, we know how it came without even amendment of the constitution, and 35A came also through a back door. So legality speaking, these two do not have any legs to stand on. And how can you leave legal issues without and then say let the law decide? And these are highly contradictory. And let me tell you, given the context, 370 and 35A are the only reason which has kept the J&K alienated. We have seen in last 70 years, they have not done any good, in fact created more conflict. Therefore, this needs to go. It has to be integrated and it has to be treated. I can understand there could be restrictions on property
But I
buying,
just want to get a
not
quick
the bar.
reaction on
I'd
this
just
one
like
point.
to
Just one moment. I
if you
want to
just
go across
allow
to
me,
Shah Faisal. Shah Faisal, the point that's being mentioned over here is that 370 and 35A are the only reason that Kashmir has been alienated. That seems to be the central theme over here. Get rid of these two, let Kashmir be better integrated. Let this not hold integration back. I think that's the point that many in the BJP have to say.
Many in other parties are kind of giving a total misinterpretation of Article 370 and Article 35A. In fact, Rajat has been saying that Article 35A came through the back door. If we are questioning the legitimacy of amendments like that, then a lot of things have happened since 1954 which have followed the same door. So if you kind of shut this door, you will have to shut lot many things, including maybe jurisdiction of the Supreme Court itself to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So we are saying let's not open that Pandora's box. Let India's Kashmir policy be India's Kashmir policy. Let it not be
But
driven
that's
or
the
inspired
Pandora's
by
box that he
China's
wants
policy
open.
in
Go ahead.
Xinjiang.
Well,
He believes that it has to be open. I mean, that's the
Shah
central
Faisal
point.
ji,
Why are we denying an engagement, Shah Faisal, on this key point? I understand where you're coming from and what you're trying to say, but if this is staring you in the face, why
We are
put
saying
away
that
debate on it?
We are saying there has been as Dr. Kaul very rightly said, that there has been a promise made to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. The founding fathers of India, Indian state, Indian constitution, and the people of Jammu and Kashmir have entered into an agreement. That agreement has to be respected. This is something which has been given by history to the people of India.
Shah
and to the
Faisal
people
ji,
of
in
Jammu
my
and Kashmir.
view,
You cannot negate those agreements today.
The people of Kashmir, when they joined India, that was on the constitution. And every law henceforth made has to stand in the spirit and letter and spirit of the constitution. If that is violated, the law has to go. There cannot be double doubts about that. And I'll tell you, I work in the Northeast. The NSC and IM agreement is being worked out. You know, it's a very creative solution which the government of India is working out, looking into concepts like shared sovereignty and whatnot. So do not say that the central government under Prime Minister Modi is not accommodative. They want accommodation, but only in the principle and the spirit of the constitution. If any law goes against that, that has to be abrogated without fail, without doubt. And I can tell you, both 370 and 3...
Article 370 is completely wrong.
No, I can give you instances.
Who has worked in the development
so, Shah
sector for
Faisal ji,
last 10
you
years.
would know.
Article 370 does not
let
at
me
all
just make a
become an
technical
obstacle to
point.
development. I can vouch for. I can give you
Shah
20
Faisal ji,
examples.
is this law 35A not against the women? The women of Jammu and Kashmir, if they are married outside the state, lose all their property rights whatsoever. That doesn't go with the men. Number one. Number two, you know about the refugee crisis. The West Pakistan refugees for the past 72 years have never had voting rights. 1 lakh people I'm talking about. That's the scale at which they have never had voting rights in the assembly, in the Jammu and Kashmir assembly.
Respond before I go across to my other panelists.
You know, we talk about human rights and you are rendering 1 lakh plus people as totally stateless. Go ahead.
The various judgments of the Honorable High Court, Honorable Supreme Court, they have settled the gender issue once for all in Jammu and Kashmir state. The right to property, the state subject rights of the women of Jammu and Kashmir are completely protected. There are judgments to that effect. I mean, trying to amend Article 35A because just somebody wants to bring in demographic change, somebody wants to insinuate here and there, that's absolutely not acceptable. If the idea is to bring gender, if the idea is to end the gender disparity, there are absolutely other measures.
No, they're not trying to amend it as Deshratan Nigam says. They want to get rid of it altogether.
See, let me tell you, I think somebody who's worked on the constitutional side,
it's not a question of amendment, it's much more than that, yes.
See, I'm saying elimination of 35A, not amendment. Yeah. That's very clear. And it came through a presidential order, not through an amendment.
But now, the point that was mentioned was that if the rights of women are, for example, protected over there,
they are not protected. They are not protected.
Well, that's what he said. Okay,
give me one such law.
No, but why not? Why not go into that? Because that is a core issue. On what basis do you say that the rights of women are guaranteed over there when it comes to owning property? Several of the other issues, it's been problematic.
It's been debated.
I am aware of those judgments. They only protect the rights of the children of the women.
I'll come to you in a moment. Yes, go ahead, Deshratan Nigam.
It's very relevant to this. My own sister married a non-Kashmiri, non-state subject. She inherited our property.
Okay.
And the courts allowed it. There was absolutely no.
How would you respond to that?
Now,
That
this
is an
is
example of that.
It's absolutely correct.
There is no law. It may have been allowed by the court on specific instances. Let me tell you. Only the rights of the children are protected through a court judgment. Only the rights of
we never appealed, sir. We just went through the regular process.
Let me tell you
how the law stands. Now, that is practical proof of what you people are arguing for.
The fact remains, the law as it stands today, only through judgments of the court, only the rights of the children of those women have been protected. The rights of the women have not been protected. That's a distinction. And let me tell you, anybody who reads the parliamentary debate about 370 prior to its inclusion said it's a temporary and transient article till the approval of accession by the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly. The day it got approved, accession to India, this should have automatically gone. It was wrong to make such historical mistakes.
For decades, a reading of both 370 and 35A. Is it something that can legally be removed?
You see, it's like this, and I started by saying this, that it's totally unnecessary. And when my friend here just said
what is unnecessary? 370, 35A,
removing 370 is unnecessary. Removing it is
should remain, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm coming to that.
Yes.
And when my friend here says that this government will be accommodating, that's what I'm looking for. And that's what I started by saying, that there is hope. Because I think Modi ji, second time around, will be a different person. And there is nothing left in 370. Please explain to me what 370 has now. It's only a fig leaf. Why do you
Yes.
want to remove that?
Yes.
Why do you want to offend the Kashmiri? Why do you want to rub his nose into the ground?
Yes.
What does it give us?
Yes.
And the point is, let me make another point here, that Kashmir, if we want to move forward, and I was very sad to hear that we have to move beyond Vajpayee, because today I read that our muscular home minister is shifting into Atalji's old residence, and I thought he might learn something from there. But if we are going to forget Atalji in Kashmir, then there is no other way.
But
Then-
Rajat,
then-
why don't you
then
answer
we
the
are
point
lost.
that he is mentioning, saying that if 370 is essentially, it's a fig leaf, it's nothing more than that, then why rub it in the face of Kashmiris who want it to remain? It's a part of their identity. Let it be the case.
Well,
If
first
it's not
point
going to
now-
fundamentally change anything, is his argument. Removing it.
Dullatji's
There is
point.
nothing in it.
No, no.
Sir, there is nothing in it.
See, if it is the emotion of the Kashmiris, it is also the emotion of the rest of the country, which feels that they.
But if
in
there's
order to
nothing
be-
in it, then from a pragmatic standpoint,
no.
then why can't
Is
it
it not
stay?
rub- it's
Why
absolutely-
should
it
this
is-
be
it
an
is a
impediment
substantive-
towards growth in Kashmir, towards greater integration in Kashmir? Why
How
can't
does
we
it-
look
how
beyond
does
the
it
prism of
enhance-
35A and
You
370?
tell me, you give me one reason, how does it enhance the integration of the land of Jammu and Kashmir with the rest of the country? It absolutely doesn't. As I've said, there has been looming human rights crisis of 20,000 families plus who've
Dullat
been
sir,
languishing
just 10
there.
seconds. Give me
What,
10
if
seconds.
you think that 1 lakh,
Okay,
a human
Samir-
crisis of 1 lakh
Samir,
is not
respond
worth
to
it,
that.
they can be thrown
Samir,
against
respond to that.
stateless people.
Go ahead,
and that's
Samir,
another
yes.
debate.
It's very, very simple here, my friends.
And what kind of
When we
integration
talk
are we
about
looking at? I don't
integration,
understand. India
let's
is a
talk
union of
about
states.
integration of hearts and minds.
That's
Is
right.
exactly our underpinning in Jammu and Kashmir. 70 years down the line, at this current moment, it's at the lowest.
Let me
But
come
why?
in for 10
Because
seconds
we
now.
diluted the instrument of accession slowly. And Mr. Dullat is completely right. There is nothing in it.
Deshratna Nigam,
See,
yes.
let me tell you.
What
when
are we
you-
flogging? We are
when you
flogging a
talk
dead
of-
horse.
When you talk of Kashmiri identity, it is not 370 that gave them Kashmiri identity. It's 5,000 years
Yes.
old. That is the Kashmiriyat identity that is this government is preserving. So to say that 370 has given them a Kashmiriyat identity is a misnomer.
All right. I just want to go across to General Deepak Kapoor, who's been waiting very patiently. Sir, we will, of course, engage with you in looking at the entire security issue. But my question to you is this. Given the fact that 370 and 35A are such live wire issues on the ground in Kashmir, do you believe that we can hope for a peace by ensuring that it remains, or do you believe it is inevitable that it has to go in order to bring peace? Because that's what everybody's goal is.
Vishnu, I'd first like to start by going back to the basics, and that is that when the instrument of accession was signed, I don't think the instrument of accession contained anything about Article 370 or 335A. Those were added subsequently. Now, if that is so, I don't see any logic in continuing with both these articles if they are hampering the process of integration of the state of Jammu and Kashmir. The state of Jammu and Kashmir is as much an inalienable part of the country as any other state. And why must the citizens of that state be looking for a separate identity from the rest of the country when all the other states and their countrymen
All right.
look at India as one state?
Shah Faisal, would you like to
from that
respond to that?
perspective, I would
That,
say
you know,
that-
it's
I
not
would
enough
say
to
that
just look
it is-
at Kashmir and limit
It is-
looking
it is
looking
very
at
important.
Kashmir just from that standpoint.
It's
We need
not
to look
about
at how
Kashmir
others
alone, it's
outside
about
the
Jammu,
state also
it's
feel,
about
and in
Ladakh.
that context it has to go, is what the general is saying.
It's a very unique state and it reflects a very unique arrangement of the Indian federalism. I don't understand why are people hell-bent. Why is there this certain kind of assimilationist or an integrationist idea where you want to just assail on the local cultures, on the local demographies? I don't understand
and
where does
assailing
it
are
come
two
from?
different issues.
See, every state has maintained its
What
identity.
kind of integration are we
whether it is
looking
Tamil Nadu,
at?
whether it is
The state
Kerala,
is
they all have
completely-
maintained their identity being a part of
No,
this,
go ahead, Shah Faisal, finish your
federal
point.
structure.
My point is, take an example of the recent GST. When the GST was brought in, you talk about economic integration. Did GST not get implemented in the state of Jammu and Kashmir? Do not all other laws which are implemented in the rest of the country? You know, the state has a very empowered legislature. That legislature most often, I mean almost always, replicates those laws which are implemented in the rest of the country. All those laws which are implemented elsewhere are
I
implemented
think
here as well.
I think
don't
the
know where does
integration
this
they're
bogey
talking
come from.
about is much more than economic integration. I think they're talking about integration in terms of how people in Jammu and Kashmir, many of whom unfortunately identify with another cause, need to be more integrated into the concept of India. There is a stark divide, and I'm sure you'd accept
Abolishing
that,
Article
between the
30
reality of beliefs in the
Abolishing
Kashmir
Article
Valley
370
and what
doesn't
people
help
across
that.
the country want. You can have a ham-handed approach and try and end it all and change things, or you can actually work towards meaningful integration. But the fact is, there is a difference, Shah Faisal, in
We are saying
interpreting it.
abolishing Article 370 absolutely doesn't help in that. Article
All right.
370
See,
Rajat,
abolition
Shah
doesn't help
Faisal
in
ji,
integrating
your first
people. It doesn't
statement,
help in,
the very first statement that you made here in this point was that Jammu and Kashmir state is a special state. That feeling of some specialness
It
is
is.
the core problem which has been
The special
exasperated
state
by
because
the
it has
Article
entered the
370
Union
and
of
35A. You know, you are no special than Uttar
Because
Pradesh,
there is a
Madhya
very
Pradesh,
special
Manipur,
arrangement between the
Nagaland,
Union of
Arunachal
India and the
Pradesh,
state of
any
Jammu and
state.
Kashmir. It's not
I
true.
have been working
It's
on the
not true.
peripheries. There have been
There has
articles
been
like
a-
371, etc.
Show me the
Nobody,
instrument of
including the
accession.
BJP, has never talked
You
against
show me the-
Article
you show me the
371,
other instruments
A,
of
B, C,
accession.
D, which deal with the northeast integration
me
with the state.
other
And let me tell
instruments
you,
of accession
Manipur,
first.
the state of princely state of Manipur and
Show me other
Tripura
instruments of
acceded
accession.
to India after Jammu and Kashmir. So please keep it in mind, there have been
Where is the
states who
instrument of
joined
accession?
in and have been accommodative provided they respect the core kernel of the constitution. That is non-negotiable,
We are
and
saying
let
that
it be
there has
tested
been
in
a
the
very
Supreme
unique
Court.
arrangement.
Why
That arrangement
why
needs
are
to
the
be respected.
politicians, Shah Faisal ji, I'll just make an important point here. Why are the politicians so scared of this article being challenged in the Supreme Court? And if the law takes its own
Shah
course,
Faisal,
so
reply
be
to
it.
that, yeah.
We are not going to go against the Supreme Court's decision. That's the
Politicians-
simple point that we are trying to make.
Political leadership here, we are saying that political leadership here is the custodian of the constitutional relationship between the Union of India
come
and the
on.
state of Jammu and Kashmir. It's a certain promise. It's a covenant which has been given,
Absolutely not.
made,
Absolutely
by the
not.
founding
The
fathers.
day the accession
We
was
cannot
signed,
change.
it's over, Shah
Absolutely.
Faisal ji.
Instrument of
Unfortunately,
accession is a
to a
reality.
lot of,
There is
you
something
know,
called
this is-
constitutional.
This is
Sabir,
where,
yes.
this is where the
This
grey area
question
Go ahead,
lies.
Sabir, yes.
This is where the grey area
By
is.
the
In a
legal
civilized
experts.
world, my friends,
I will talk
integration
about
cannot
20
be
legal
shoved down
experts who have
people's
already settled
throats.
this question. What are we
You have
talking
to
about?
prepare the people, unless the people of Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh say in one voice or a predominant voice that this is what will benefit us and this is what we'll want, it should be done, and we will not stand against it, because
That
that is what
voice is not-
civility
that voice is
and
not going to come.
humanity decides.
Mr. Dullat, isn't that,
but this
isn't
is
that
not the way to do
the
it.
central
That
problem now
legislature
that
should take the correct decision.
there is a particular view from the center saying this is the solution, whereas there are people on the ground with sentiments which are very different, and it's going to be a clash. That's the bottom line.
You see, let me put it like this. I think we debated this long enough, 370, whether it should stay or go, or whatever. My view, I've told you that
Yes.
there is nothing in it. You want it to go, well, it'll go. You want it to stay, it stays. But there is a more basic issue, and that is that, you know, which troubled me, that in politics or in life, right may not always be right. But if you are suggesting, or somebody is suggesting, that Vajpayee was wrong, then I feel that there is very little hope for
Deshratan
moving
Nigam,
forward in
Vajpayee's
Kashmir.
views on Kashmir
Let-
passe now?
Let
No,
me
no, certainly not.
Let me
I think
add
I
to
have been
that. Let me
misunderstood.
add to that. That in the last 2.5 years, our so-called muscular policy has brought nothing but disaster to Kashmir.
Okay, 2 points
Now-
over there.
Now, 1 minute.
Yes.
Let me just
Yes,
carry on
yes,
that.
yes.
Let me elaborate on that. You know, a terrorist which Pakistan recruited and
Yes.
sent
Yeah.
used to cost them about 1.5 lakh or 1 lakh. Now you get them free in South Kashmir, and that is glorified there. Is this the kind of Kashmir that we want?
See,
Deshratan Nigam,
let me answer.
his exact words is that the muscular policy has been
The
disastrous.
five districts
We
of
find
Kashmir-
insurgency now, the numbers I have in front of me, and this is a great segue to actually move to look into that, is that the number of people who are local terrorists, militants, call them whatever you want, they're all from within. There are foreign terrorists, but the danger of insurgency from within is huge.
No, that's fine.
And it's going up.
So it can be tackled. Let me answer your questions. A very important point of Mr. Kaul raised about preparation, and that is where the policy differs from Mr. Vajpayee. The preparation out here is an all-out war against terrorism, a very strong policy against Pakistan, both defense and foreign policy. That is what preparation is this government is concentrating on. And thirdly, once you are able to control involvement of the people, and that is
but how are you controlling the involvement of people when people
I'm not
are
controlling.
against the
I'm
concept
not,
you're talking
no,
about?
I'm not asking
You're going to
about,
force it through.
No.
But
I'm talking about controlling terrorism and extremism, and once it is controlled, now you have Baramulla already declared
No, but you
terror-free.
see, just to put a statistic to what Mr. Dullat is saying,
Absolutely not. How much have you
101
controlled?
terrorists killed
Let's
in the
talk
last
about
5 months. These are current numbers. 76 of them are local. So the point he's saying is that South Kashmir has been, it's a disaster zone because the muscular policy
Terrorism is terrorism, whether it is local or from outside.
But the point is the numbers are going, the numbers are going up.
See,
right? Of local use.
No, it happens.
It's a parameter of
So
judging what's happening.
Once you have a strong policy, an all-out war, this number will go up for a while, and then it will come down. That is how insurgency works.
Shah Faisal, the point he is mentioning,
that is not how insurgency works.
And let me tell you, the moment if you have a gun and if you're pointing a gun towards the state and killing people, Mr. Dullat, just
that
one
is
second.
not how insurgency works.
And let me tell you, once you pick up a gun against the state, you will meet.
Shah Faisal, half a second, I'll come to you next.
You will meet the same fate. The state will
okay,
have a
Mr.
gun
Dullat,
against
go
you.
ahead. Yeah.
For you. Number one, Ephraim Halevi was one of the better known Mossad chiefs.
Yes.
And he had to ultimately acknowledge that force doesn't work. And he said, we have to talk to the Hamas. I'll take you further back.
But force is what their philosophy is premised on now.
Look at the policy.
I'm telling you what he said, and he still believes in that, and he still talks about that all over the world. He attended a conference here where I was present.
Okay, but go ahead with your point, yes.
Yeah. And now I've forgotten what you...
No, you're talking about force
yeah,
and muscular policy.
I'll take you back to 1950, all right? The British had a big problem in Malaya, insurgency problem.
Yes.
And there was a field marshal and a general who first formulated a handbook on how to deal with terror. And the core of that handbook, which still holds good in the West, is winning the hearts and minds of the people.
But we've had this for a long time.
Vishnu,
In fact, the army has been trying to do Operation Sadbhavna for such a long time. It's a small example. But we've had this. Winning hearts and minds we've heard for decades now.
I'm not saying that Sadbhavna
It's not worked in India for whatever the reason.
Yeah, but this force is not going to succeed.
Vishnu, when you talk about Israel, look at how Netanyahu's latest statements about Hamas. He says he will smoke them out if you hit us. And that is where it is paying. The policy is paying. Otherwise, they would have completely overtaken, through rocket and missile launches on the civilian areas.
Since we are quoting Israel and what happened with Israel for 70 years, even pre-independence of Israel, right up to the present time, and there have been various fluctuations, and we are following the Israel pattern. We have also evolved around the same pattern by now trying to use smart bombs, trying to use targeted killings. But that's been in question, in legality in Israel is a big thing. But it won't work because of the simple reason, when an Israeli is born, the Holocaust is alive in his mind. Like the Muslim child is told,
no,
Allah
so your point, is
in Kashmir,
Kashmir, finish what you're saying.
There is conscription in Israel. It's a small nation, and believe me, at the end of it, Mr. Dullat is absolutely right. The most successful generals in the Shin Bet and in Mossad and in the ANA have always felt that talking was a much better
General
option.
Kapoor, talking versus using the gun, smoking out terrorists, smoking out extremists. I think we are pretty unanimous about the use of the word terrorism. Those who are against the notion of India, who believe in violence, are terrorists, irrespective of whether they are in Jammu and Kashmir or elsewhere. But do you believe that the situation in Jammu and Kashmir is now such that fighting with guns may not be the only solution?
Before can you hear me, Vishnu?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Hello. Can you hear me, please? Vishnu, before I say that, I'd like to ask anyone in the august audience the number of casualties both on the civil side as well as on the security forces side in the last 70 years have
I
been
have those
tremendous.
numbers, General. I'm
More than
interrupting you
what we
because I
lost
have
perhaps
those
in the
numbers.
Second World
Between
War itself.
2014 and 2018, there's been a 93%
Okay,
rise
I'll go
in
further.
the number of security personnel killed, a 176% rise in the number of terrorist incidents, 1,708 terror incidents, or 28 every month. This is Home Ministry between 2014 and last year. Those are the numbers. General, make your point. General, go ahead.
Prior to 2014, the RTI says there were much more than this.
And all the and all this has happened because there are differences within the Indian Union, and those are the differences which are being exploited by outside powers in the form of a proxy war. So if we wish to avoid that, we need to have a firm view on this, and with the kind of mandate which has been given to the present dispensation, I do feel that this is the right time to fully integrate the state and make it a part of it. The citizens of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, I think, have always got a preferential treatment vis-a-vis the rest of the country, but so be it if it
I just want to go, I take your point, General. I want to go back to Shah Faisal for a bit. Shah Faisal, you would accept that those who are armed with automatic weapons, who are firing at our security forces, increasingly firing at innocent Kashmiris as well, policemen, those in the armed forces, these are terrorists. But when the armed forces try and engage them, there is this trend now over the last few years of stone pelters emerging. It is an impossible situation in so many cases for security forces, whether it's here or anywhere in the world. How does anyone fight terror if you've got stone pelting happening on one hand and a gun battle against terrorists perhaps from Pakistan on the other?
Number one, I have always talked about loss of human lives. I have never restricted that sentiment to lives of Kashmiris. I have always talked about lives of soldiers, lives of police people, lives of people who come from tourists who got killed here in Kashmir. I believe when I talk about bloodshed, when I talk about killings, I have been categorical that these killings, it's, whenever anybody gets killed in Kashmir, it's something which is totally.
Okay, we've lost that and we'll come back to him.
I'd
Yes.
just like to put in a word.
Yeah.
First of all, going back to it, that the ability to take hits like Israel.
General, half a second, yes.
And the good general, because he's a good general, it's nice to be talking to a considerate general once a while. And
the others are not
the
considerate.
ability to take hits by the Israeli population does not exist
but
in
look
India.
at the
And if
situation
you study
in
the
Jammu and
insurgency of
Kashmir,
Israel,
it's completely untenable.
So if you
what are the CRPF and the Jammu and Kashmir police handling? They are handling the craziest mobs of stone pelters
that is
imaginable.
the regular story of insurgency.
300 meters away, there's a gun
that
battle,
is
the
the
army is
typical
fighting
story.
against terrorists.
That is the typical story of Israel and insurgency anywhere in the world.
but that doesn't
You
justify
take a
it.
lot of
No,
hits because
absolutely not.
people wire themselves up
in
and
a
they
situation
kill themselves.
like-
Now the answer
I'll
to
come
the
to you in half a
question.
second,
No,
sir.
no,
Go ahead,
just
Rajat.
the answer to your question to Shah Faisal, I want to give it.
Yes.
I want to tell
Yes.
you this
Yes.
is where the overplay of politics comes in. It cannot be done without the people's cooperation. These people who flock to these sites
So then-
are misguided
so then-
people.
so- right.
Yes, but that's what we need to
So
counter.
then what do you want to
That's
do
what
with
I'm
the
saying,
misguided
that
people?
only a muscular
Give them more of an
military
opportunity,
policy
more
is
of a
not
chance.
enough.
We've seen that happening in the past. It's not
the
worked.
point is this, that the politicians of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, the two families primarily, have time and again brought a false equivalence of Israel. Let me tell you, they bring in these equivalents to bring in a sort of an intifada coming into Kashmir. Let me tell you, it is never going to happen because the two problems are very different, fundamentally different, and the treatment that has been given, meted out in Israel to the insurgents there is totally different from what is happening in the Jammu and Kashmir Valley. You see those videos, we are ourselves seeing those videos. The fundamental problem of J&K will always be the politicians, which so far have been controlled by two families.
Would you accept that it's the PDP and the NC which are the problems?
No.
Without their active support, you cannot deal with these
No.
mobs.
You've been quoting figures. Let me quote you one interesting figure.
The Home Ministry, by the way. So anyhow.
Yeah, and that is that the lifespan of a terrorist in Kashmir in the past for many years used to be 2.5 years. Today, it is our own boys and the lifespan is 1 day to 10 days. I think we should understand what that signifies. Number one.
It means a high turnover.
Number two, this thing about the two families, you know, I beg to differ, because, you know, like I said, force won't work and muscular policy won't work. It didn't work even with the Congress. The Congress tried it when they locked up Sheikh in 1953. And then ultimately what did you do? You had to bring him back in 75. Okay. And that was a blunder. And if it had not been for Sheikh Saab, let me say, maybe Jammu and Kashmir may not have been with India.
What does Sheikh Sahab's role have to do with Umar Abdullah? That's the point. Why do you need to have families running the state over and over and over again, and they have their entrenched beliefs?
That is not the only family in India.
I'm
there
a
are
bit
so many families.
People like Alam Bhatt, they have been part of the political patronage.
I think my
just
friend,
because they cannot think out of the box.
My friend needs to study the latest ECI figures, and he needs to see that the people, BJP MPs who have won in the last election, maximum are from families within the BJP.
See, please, Kaul Sahab, you will never be a neutral analyst on this question. Let me point out where I see.
But he's not a neutral analyst. He has.
Of course, that's what I'm saying. He's not a neutral analyst. So let me bring to table a couple of points. See, one missing aspect throughout this debate has been the role of the politicians.
Okay.
You know, we have Shah Faisal ji who's just floated a new party. Let me ask them that why are they not looking at out-of-the-box solutions, trying to work closely with the armed forces and all, and try to see that, yes, this could be like a creative new way, post-370, once the 370 and 35A goes out, what could be the other remedial measures, so to say, to restore their aspirations or their feelings within the Indian constitutional realm. So far, they have defeated because they want to be cocooned in a shelter which has been provided, and they have been given patronage to separatists and extremists. When people like Alam Bhatt is picked by NIA, they are the ones who are shouting the most.
I pose this question to anybody over here. Beyond tackling terrorists very forcibly, beyond ensuring that radicalized youth are not given a second opportunity, if that seems to be the policy, what is the larger outreach to people in Jammu and Kashmir? Yeah, Deshrathan.
Once you know the policy of this government is to smoke out terrorists, you've been able to achieve certain semblance of peace, then the approach starts. Then the
so there is no simultaneous approach.
It encourages them, you know, it stops that smoking out principle. You know, you become that is the previous government policies when you're doing it simultaneously. It allows them to regroup. It allows them to regroup and then again attack the state.
It's the language which a lot of people would consider problematic.
No.
Again,
see, it's a policy
versus them.
We are talking about.
Obviously, there is no
we are not talking about terrorism. We are talking about terrorists.
But we are talking about terrorists who happen to be
we are not talking about the people
in our country.
Let us make a distinction.
Is there not to be a simultaneous effort in trying to reach out?
Let me tell you, the governance is going on there simultaneously. The development work is going on simultaneously out there. Government policies have not stopped there. They are working. And at the same time, there is an all-out war against terrorism. So you cannot say the government has stopped out there.
No, but that's what you were saying. That was your point. You're saying that you smoke them out first, then we will talk about a larger strategy.
Larger strategy is once you have this control, then you have to abrogate 35A, do we have Shah Faisal and 370. Back? Then you have to
we don't have him back. Mr. Dullat, and then I'll come across to you.
Then you have strategy, then Vajpayee's strategy.
No, Vajpayee's strategy has not worked in the long run.
I'm not discarding Vajpayee's strategy.
It was a visionary philosophy. A lot of people felt that there would be progress, but it's not.
It did not pay.
We are here discussing this now because at one level that philosophy or that has not necessarily worked.
It did work
for a while.
It worked for a long while.
For a long time. It was a transient phenomenon.
But my point is, this philosophy, the all-out philosophy, has not worked even in the last 2.5 years. You know, and
so what is the way forward then?
The way forward
is the
the Vajpayee way, to talk.
To talk to who?
About delimitation is one of the important points here.
Talk to
Isn't that the key question?
Talk to the Kashmiri.
Right, but who represents so many disparate voices, all of whom willy-nilly do not want to be, in the present scenario, a part of India? Who do you talk to? I mean, how do you engage a disparate? The Jamhuriyat is discredited at this juncture.
Panchayat leadership is very important, which has come
up. Mainstream political parties, and he knows this, find it difficult to enter even villages.
1 minute. Is there a problem talking to Dr. Farooq Abdullah? Is there a problem talking to Umar Abdullah? Is there a problem talking to Mehbooba Mufti? Is there a problem talking to the Mirwais? And the list goes on and on and on.
Okay.
I mean, see,
engage
the
mainstream political parties like it's always been done in the past.
The verdict of 2014 elections rendered a situation wherein the BJP had to come and join hands with PDP. We all know that it didn't result into anything meaningful. And coming back to Atalji's point that Dolaji has been pointing out, Insaniyat, Jamhuriyat, Kashmiriyat has been the fundamental pillars. You see what happened to Insaniyat. People have been stone pelting thoroughly, non-stop, just because of the financial patronage several of them have been getting. What has happened to Jamhuriyat? The principal political parties there, the PDP and the National Conference, have stood away from any election. They deliberately wanted to make the Indian state null and void in that region by not participating in the elections. Let me just finish it. In Kashmiriyat,
just because of grassroots elections,
yeah, all of the elections. Now they're constantly threatening and holding democracy to
one second.
That's a good point.
Let me finish.
Mr. Dullat,
regarding
30
Kashmiriyat,
seconds to you because I want to go back to the general and Shah Faisal.
No, even
Kashmiriyat, sir, limits down the whole geographical expanse of Jammu and Kashmir.
Interrupt right away, sir.
Even 10 seconds will be enough. What I'm saying is that I think elections, assembly elections, should be held as early as possible.
Yes.
This prolonging governor's rule is not in anybody's interest. If you remember 1996, it was Narasimha Rao's masterstroke having elections, and which really provided a big setback to militancy. So I think elections must be held at the earliest.
Okay.
And we are postponing them on one excuse or the other.
Go ahead.
Let me tell you, it's such a clever strategy by the two parties out there. They do not boycott Lok Sabha elections. They let their parties boycott Panchayat elections. They don't want leadership to develop there, and therefore their hegemony should remain in Jammu and Kashmir. And therefore, luckily, the poll percentage was quite high in the Panchayat elections, and the new leadership that has come up.
No, I think Samir has a right to answer that.
Sir, just 2 minutes, and after that you can say. I'll just leave this program today with the hope that the leaders who make these decisions, political leaders, Amit Shah ji and other people, are much more considerate and think it's not such a simplistic problem as was presented, that you snuff out the terrorists and then the time for political. It doesn't work that way. Anywhere in the world, these are joined together. You have to work at them together.
Okay,
and all I'm saying, and I hope that a real hand of friendship is extended to the Kashmiri people, the ones who are not militant. Extend a hand of friendship to them. उनको गले लगाओ, फिर उसका नजर देखो.
That seems to be the thoughts of a few of our panelists. How would you respond to that?
Look, General Saab said it very rightly that the average lifespan of a militant now is within days. I mean, it's maybe 1 day to maybe 10 days, at the most to be a month. By that statistic, then the Kashmir issue should be resolved within a month, if counterinsurgency is the only thing that's going to work here. But we have seen for the last 30 years, counterinsurgency is a very inefficient, very insufficient remedy for a political problem like this. We have seen 100,000 killings. Things have not moved forward. Let's somehow bring in the politics into it. Let there be dialogue. I mean, people tell us what has happened. Dialogue has not worked. Has counterinsurgency worked? Last 30 years, we have been watching it. Every day there are people going into the graves. Senior officers have been getting killed here. Police officers have been getting killed here.
When you keep saying, Vishnu,
Does it work?
that the olive branch didn't work, it was never extended. In fact, there was no policy at all. It was always reactive. When there was a fire, we reacted to it. When there was an explosion, we reacted to it. I mean, are you forgetting that the BJP, PDP government had a race to decide who would give the stone pelters away?
Because I'm running out of time, I just have about a minute or two left. General Kapoor, you know, in as much as we are trying to remove terrorists on the ground over there, somehow try and ensure that youngsters are not radicalized, the number of security personnel killed, those numbers are horrific. Between 2014 and 2018, 93% rise, 176% rise in terrorist incidents, nearly 2,000 terror incidents between 2014 and 2018. At what cost is this coming to our own armed forces, the police and the CRPF included?
Your figures may be right, but I'd also like to point out that the terrorism and insurgency which has been going on in the valley has also had no chance of success. nor are they likely to have at any point in time if you look into the future. But having said that, I'd also like to say that the security forces can take the situation up to a certain level of normalcy and stability, after which talks, discussion and dialogue has to happen.
They can't happen
And
together is what you're saying.
we need to decide as to what exactly is that point where the security... No. So you need to make sure that the stability to an extent is restored, and post that take up the issue of a dialogue between different stakeholders to ensure that peace comes back to the
Okay,
valley.
fair enough, General. I need to wrap this up. We're completely out of time on the big fight this evening. But to me, the takeaway seems to be that if we were to have played out this program a year back or 2 years back, it would essentially be the same. Because the more we talk, the fact of the matter is there are no real solutions which are quick fire solutions. Nothing of that sort in Kashmir at all. Will this government be able to introduce change by winning hearts, or are we going to see an extended period of striking out at terrorists first before talks can take place? Out of time. Thanks for being with us. Goodbye.